Men of Reddit, the cultural norm is for women to take their husband's last name when they get married. If your wife wanted you to take her last name instead, would you? Honestly no, I wouldn't, only because I believe that women shouldn't have to take her husband's/wife's last name. I think people should keep their names. It's a silly and outdated notion to adopt someone else's name for the sake of the marriage. Alternatively, you could come up with your own last name. Like Joe and Joanne Megatron Samus. No. Just like I wouldn't force her to take my last name. She could keep hers, take mine, or hyphenate. I did. Did you hyphenate or just take her name? How did others react to this? We made up our own new last name. Personally, I would not take my wife's last name. I have a lot of my personal identity tied up in my last name. That being said, I would not have been opposed to my wife keeping her last name if that's what she wanted. Yay. This is a non-issue for me. I don't really care about those types of things. Personally, I might suggest fusing our last names together to make a new one. Think about a new family name for every generation. They used to have new family names every generation in Scandinavian countries. You take the first name of your father and add son at the end. Will Johnson's son would be Jack Wilson, and his son would be Dan Jackson, and so on. Same concept with Irish surnames that contain Mac. Look up patronyms for more. Depends whose last name is cooler. I'm a dude, but I want a last name that's Van something. HMU Germanic, Dutch ladies, thumbs up. Yup. I'm a staunch believer in the upgrade/downgrade system. I've seen many female friends lose their cool-sounding maiden names in favor of things like Wynedinkle. I think last names should be all about survival of the fittest. Coolest name stays. What person in their right mind would pass on an opportunity to be a Wynedinkle? I am not a man, but I know a man who did this. He had several brothers, and when he married, they had already started families. His wife is an only child of a small family and would have been the last of her name, so to speak, so he took her name, and their 2 kids also did, so that her last name would be passed down to someone. I don't have siblings and only female cousins with no kids, and my husband said it was fine to give our son my last name. So my family name lives. My husband never took mine though. I saw a light bulb come on over his head when we discussed changing names, and I asked him the reasons he didn't want to change his. It dawned on him it's why I wouldn't want to give up my name and identity. Depends on who has a cooler last name. Like if my last name was Hill and hers was McNugget, you know we about to be the McNuggets. Haha, respect that. I would definitely pick that last name too, so I know this couple. He's a junior with the same name as his father, who is in prison. Causes a lot of problems when he applied for jobs and they do background checks and it pulls up his father's record. She left her family at 15 and never contacted them again. They just got married and picked a new last name that they both loved and both changed it to that. They both love otters and that's what they picked, and so now they are the otter family and couldn't be happier. All their wedding invites were otter themed. It was the most adorable thing. That is such a great idea. Sure. It's just a name. I'm not going through the trouble of changing my email and all that though. I offered to take my wife's, her last name was Love. But she was the traditionalist. Sure. I hate my last name. I'll take whatever you got. My father was adopted when he was young, so he took his current last name from his adopted parents. My wife coincidentally has that same last name, so when we got married there was no change. People thought and think we are cousins, no relation at all of course, but it's gross explaining it lol. That would be so nice for her to not have to update her name on anything lol. Is her last name cooler than mine? Then yes, otherwise no. I'm a woman, but this is pretty much how I decided. My husband has a sorta goofy last name, so I kept mine. I would discuss picking out a new name, like Dingo Brains or Hoovulu or Alan Dracula. Lol about Alan Dracula. Hell no, my last name starts with an A, I'm usually one of the first in line. Her maiden name starts with an S. To hell with moving to the back. If her last name started a hell yeah I'd take it always first. Dude, my last name is Nut, so I'ma make sure my kids get bullied just like I did. Please name your son Buster. Yes. Sure, and it has nothing to do with who has the cooler name. It's because it's 2020 and we don't need to perpetuate patriarchal traditions just cuz. Absolute non-issue. Yes. Sure. A couple of guys at work have already done that, doesn't really seem like a big deal. I live in Sweden though, gender equality has been a big thing here for a while now, so it's not really that weird here. No. I'm keeping my name, so should women like my sisters and all my female relatives do. No. I am not adding 4 last names to my 2 given names. Yes, Portuguese and Brazilian last names are so ridiculously long as to rival that sentence. My wife's last name had 5 syllables and a hyphen. She claims to have chosen me for my simple last name. As a female with a long last name, who is also a teacher, I am looking for a simple last name due to lol. My last name is Hand. I'll see you at the altar. No, but I don't expect her to take mine either. I like my name the way it is. She's welcome to take mine but not expected. I like the way you worded this as don't expect her to instead of how almost everyone else said I wouldn't force her to. My dad had 2 brothers. Out of my mom and 2 aunts, only one even hyphenated her name. I was raised in an environment where women taking their husband's last name wasn't the norm at all. I knew a guy who took his wife's name when they got married, because when they met, she was a successful professional with a business and a reputation, and he was living in the back of a computer shop fixing PCs on an expired student visa. As he put it, she had like a mortgage, and a car, and I was eating pork fried rice in the computer shop 5 days a week. My last name is actually my father's given name, son of an Indian immigrant. And given he's passed on, I don't think I could give up his name. Everyone's reasons are personal and should not be judged. That is very respectful. No. But I also won't force her to change he into mines. My name is who I am. There is no reason to change it unless I don't want to be myself. I'd have no issue with it. Certainly makes it easier if I were to be dating a single mother, assuming her surname and her kids' surnames match. A lot of administrative things become easier if you have the same last name as any stepkids you happen to have. My girlfriend's last name is Smirnoff. I would be pissed if she wants to take mine. Okay, that's a great last name. I don't think I could give that up.